For my ethnographic documentary project, I decided to study and engage in the art of Latin dance. There is a rich history in the origins and development of Latin dance, extending into the Americanization of these dance practices. I decided to focus on Latin dance to research this development, as there are many prominent examples of the Americanization of Latin dance right here in Madison. To help get some insight before I began my project, I reached out to a friend who has deep family ties in Latin America. Alright, so I have here with me Izzy.
Hello?
Izzy was born in America, but her family is from Venezuela, and I'll let her talk about that for a little bit. So, what exactly is your background?
Yeah, so as Jack said, I was born in Minnesota, and my whole family from my mom and dad's side is both originally from Caracas, Venezuela. So as a young kid, we would go back there. I would spend my entire summers there, even live there for a couple years. Up until around first grade, we moved to London, so we actually would only be able to go to Venezuela for like the summers.
So, how often would you be exposed to dance when you would visit Venezuela?
All the time, like multiple times a day. We would be like in the kitchen listening to music and they would start dancing to something like we'd be going out to like dinner and afterwards like people would dance.
Okay, so what are the kind of dances that they do in Venezuela?
The main two dances I would say are the merengue and the salsa.
Oh, the merengue, how is that different from the salsa?
So they're both like that. You dance them to different musics. They have different beats. The merengue is a bit faster typically, and the salsa is more complex. They have totally different steps as well. With the merengue as well, it's when you're dancing it, it's easier to like do like turns and dance with your partners, but like still be like holding on to each other's hands the whole time. While the salsa can be a bit more separate. Also, the merengue, you usually dance it from like side to side and turn around, while as a salsa, it's more of like a back and forth kind of movement. And salsa also has a syncopated clave rhythm, which is why it's like much more complex.
Okay. So with this documentary, my main argument is that as Latin dance was brought to America, it lost a lot of its original influences, namely its religious influences. Do you have anything to speak to that?
Yeah, so at least for me, I know that like religion plays like a big role in like bringing people together, and I think that's like where the whole thing with music started from in South America at least. They would like listen to music and people would dance. Like I know for example, even now when we listen to like Christmas music around my house, my parents will like blast it around and like dance to it and just like have a good time. Like we'll see it in more religious settings. Whereas here in the US, like living here and with our friends, I don't really see people dancing to like religious music or in like senses like that. Usually when you think of religion you think of one thing, and when you think of dancing you think of it in more of a social way and like bringing people together in more of a social way. Yeah, and whereas in South America it brings like the two together.
Okay, thank you. The origins of Latin dance date back to the early days of the slave trade, when the slaves being transported would perform dances where each of them represented a different god. In the 1930s, versions of Latin dance grew in the United States, such as the mambo, and when combined with Cuban dance music, the salsa. I chose to look at salsa dancing specifically as it is a great example of how Latin dance impacted popular dance in America and how it changed. I found that while Americanized versions of Latin dance, such as the salsa, maintain a lot of the original movements, they lost a lot of the original religious influence in order to focus on the performance aspect. Tempo Dance Studio, a salsa dance studio close to Westtown Mall in Madison, offers many different salsa classes, focusing on the sport and movement of the dance. Here's a short excerpt from some of the studio's professionals. As you can see, this dance is very choreographed, involving the two dancers mainly dancing apart from each other in the beginning. This feels very inauthentic as compared to original Latin dance. As you can see in their dance style, they don't seem to use partner aspects such as turns and the crossbody lead, two very prominent aspects of original Latin dance. You can also tell that their bodies don't seem to have as loose of a feel as spontaneous Latin dance should. Right, so Camille here and I attended the class together, and while we could not get footage of ourselves dancing, Camille here has had a little bit more lessons and experience in salsa lessons, such as the one we took, but also she's had a chance to extend her experience into the nightlife of Madison, Wisconsin. So, Camille, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed going to Latin night at the Blue Velvet Lounge because I can kind of like use what I've learned in the salsa dancing class, but like in a more free sense because it's not so choreographed step by step. And it's kind of fun to see all the people like interacting with each other and kind of like the lively atmosphere with the music and stuff like that.
While filming this documentary, I learned a lot about the physical nature of historical Latin dance as well as the culture behind it. While interviewing people and experiencing the American adaptations of Latin dance, I found evidence that supported my conclusion that Latin dance in America has lost a lot of the original factors embodied in Latin dance, such as religion and its effect on spontaneity and freedom of expression. I enjoyed getting to learn hands-on while gaining a small set of dance skills for myself and look forward to furthering my practice after this documentary.